Greetings gamers, my name is Anto and today we're taking another look at Legendkeeper, the campaign management tool that I've been using to run my campaigns now for the last 5 years. Has it really been 5 years? Oh my god, I am being ravaged by the sands of time. I mean, look at this guy. Look at the hopeful look of youth in his eyes. Anyway, it's been a while since we've done one of these, so I thought it was time that we got together, sat down, and I showed off some of Legendkeeper's features, how the app has changed, and how I'm currently using it. This video is sponsored by Fablecraft, a new TTRPG built from the ground up to work on VTTs. More on them later. Now, when you first open Legendkeeper or log into it with your 14-day free trial, you're going to be presented with this screen, which is the project screen. You can see I've got a whole bunch of different projects, but you won't have all of these. What you will have is the ability to create a new project, or you're going to have the example projects here on the left: Questing in Selenia or Corvus's Canticum's Natural History. And these are example projects that you can duplicate and load into and get a feel for. But we're going to go ahead and we're just going to create a new project and we're going to call it LK Test. So once you make your project, you're going to load into this welcome screen. This is the introduction to Legendkeeper. It's going to have a bunch of information on how to use the project, and it's also going to be the homepage for your newly created project. Before we dive into the how to use everything, I want to give you a quick little tour of the UI. So starting at the top left, the Legendkeeper icon here. When you click into this, you're going to be able to access your projects, change from dark mode into light mode. I always stay with dark mode. Change permissions, which we're going to talk about, change the settings for your projects, and also import and export things, which again, we're going to talk about. Then you get the name of your project here. You can expand or close the sidebar, the page browser here. Up at the top, you get your page tree. So this will tell you where in the project you are as you go into pages that are nested in pages. This will tell you that. It tells you who's signed in over here on the right and gives you the option to share your world on the web over on the right here as well. On the left hand side here, you've got the project browser. This is going to allow you to filter by tags, and then it's going to show you all of your pages and your page templates. And then down at the bottom, you've got the search bar as well as the option to create a new page and to add media. Then the main section of your page, this is your main page element. You can add new tabs, which we'll talk about. Then up here, you've got 3 dots, which gives you a bunch of options for the page. So you can change whether or not you see the sidebar by default. You can show banners. You can add image banners to the top of the page to make your pages look a little prettier. You can hide the page from non-admins. You can lock the page so no more edits can be made to it. You can change its permissions. You can duplicate it, export it, move it, change it to be full width. So this is great if you want to be able to fit more onto your screen real estate. There's an auto link option, which we'll talk about, and then there's kind of a version changes option, which will show you how things have changed on that page. Then if you click these 3 lines here, that'll open the sidebar, and the sidebar allows you to add blocks. Now, there's a whole bunch of different blocks, from images to rich text, aliases, which allow you to tag an article with a different name so that when you use that alternative name in another article, the auto linker can scrape it. So this page is currently called LK Test, but let's say I wanted to call it Horace for an example. So I put that in the alias, and then I can go into a different page, type Horace, and you can see it will auto link to LK Test. I can hit the little auto linker button, and now it will link to the appropriate page. Auto linker, really cool. I use that a lot for my Pantheon because I have long god names like Clavo the Trickster, and I tag their alignment in their god name as well. So I put Clavo as an alias so I can just write Clavo and have it auto link. Then you've got backlinks, which will show any pages that mention this page, and a whole bunch of other options, pin appearance. You can add Spotify and YouTube links. You can do a lot with the sidebar. But the main strength for me for Legendkeeper, and the main reason I use it over any other solution, is the map tools. So if we go ahead here and go onto our newly created tab, we have a couple of options to create pages, maps, boards, and timelines, which are coming soon. And if you have templates that exist, it will also give you the option to create some templates sometimes if you've just created a new page. But we're going to create a map. So we're going to click here. It will make a new map page. You'll tell that it's a map by the gridded lines, and then you can add an image. The default project comes with a couple maps, so we're just going to grab one of those. We're going to grab this Questing in Selenia map that anyone that is familiar with Legendkeeper will be familiar with. And we'll use it as an example to show off how maps work. So once the map is loaded in and loaded the first time, you might see that it is quite blurry the first time that you load it as it processes, especially if you've uploaded a large map. Legendkeeper supports up to 100 megabytes, I think 14 or 16,000 pixel resolution maps, really enormous maps. So the first time that you load it, it might be quite blurry, but once it's kind of rendered that first time, the engine breaks it down into little chunks and then displays it in those chunks. It will display much quicker the following times. Once we've got our map, we're going to start adding locations. So to do that, we're just going to pick anywhere on the map, like this city here. We're going to zoom in with the middle mouse wheel, move around with left mouse, and then we're going to right click on it with right mouse click, and we're going to create element. And that'll bring up a little dialog, which will give us the option to make a page. We've got the option to change the pin for that, which will allow us to change the icon for it using either icons or emojis. You can also use images as pins, but there's a little bug at the moment where you can't do it from this dialog. You've got to create the pin and then go in and edit it. Or you can choose to hide the icon and just have the pin shape and color, or have the icon only and have no pin shape. I prefer to keep the pin shape because you get the color, and I like to color code things so at a glance I know what point of interests are. And towards the end of the video, I'll go through all of that on my actual world. So we're just gonna create a place here, and we'll just call this capital and create our element. And then when we click it, we get a new page. We can add options, and you can see that there are a bunch of templates. The example Legendkeeper world comes with a bunch of templates, so a location template, which is what this would be, and it gives you some options. You can see you've got a little information box that tells you about this place, a quote for like a read aloud section, and then some descriptions and stuff. So there are a bunch of templates included in the base Legendkeeper option, but then there's also tons of community made templates as well that you can import directly into your project. Let's say that you want this place to be hidden. You can right click on it, you can hide the page and hide the pin from this context menu as well, so that when anyone that isn't an admin, typically players in our context, are looking at the map, they won't see the pin. This is great for hiding random encounters, random points of interest, all sorts of things. Again, I'll show you a full example of how that's used later on. And now's actually a great time to talk about permissions. So Legendkeeper works in a two-tiered permission system. If we jump over to the permissions view, you can see here that this permissions view will show you everything that the members can see. So it'll break down your entire project kind of page by page, and you can set permissions for members. Legendkeeper has two tiers of permissions overview: members and admins. Admins can see everything as far as I'm aware. Members only see what you set. So there's a couple different options. They can inherit the settings from parents. This is great for not having to individually change the options for every single page, or you can go in and manually change it. So you can make it so that they can view the page, they can edit the page, they can edit and modify its permissions. So that makes them sort of a mini admin. They can't view it, so it's completely locked down, or it's hidden so only admins can see it. My general advice is assume that everyone can see every page that you make. If you are running a campaign with Legendkeeper, so I'm making this under the assumption that most of you watching are going to be game masters running TTRPGs in this. If you're a game master and you're making pages, always assume every page that you make can be seen by the players. So when you make a page, you want to be incorporating these secret blocks, and we'll talk about how to make them in a second. Those can never be seen by anyone other than an admin. So when I'm making my pages, even when I hide them, anything that I know that I don't want the players to see always goes in a secret block, even if I plan on hiding the page and hiding the pin on the map, just in case there's some kind of weird technological glitch, or I've done something wrong with the permissions and the players end up seeing a page that they shouldn't. They're still not going to end up seeing information they shouldn't. Okay then, so let's create a new page and go over how to create information in Legendkeeper. So the main window that you're going to work in is this kind of default page. Might look a little bit different when you're building out templates and things, but the way that you interact with it is going to be the same. Every time you make a new page, you're going to see this little faded prompt here: type / for commands or @ for mentions. So that's where we're going to start. Typing / is going to bring up a context menu, which will give you a ton of different options. This is where most of the kind of secret features or the powerful tools that you're going to use in building out articles live. So from here, you're going to be able to add things like secret blocks, to be able to add hidden text. You're going to be able to add a call out. So this gives you options for you to be able to put in information, to add a note, to add different colored options, to be able to break out information visually on the page to either tell your players something or tell yourself something. I use this predominantly in two different ways. So on almost every page, I have one of these blue information boxes, and I include the following. And I include a from the setting guide, and I include a little snippet of information about whatever the page is, and that piece of information is something that anyone in this world would know if it is readily available. So that's something that if a player stumbles upon this page, let's say that they're looking at the page for a settlement, they click on this settlement, they'll have this little box of text that says from the setting guide, and they'll have 1 or 2 sentences about that settlement. And that's something they don't need to ask me. They don't need to roll any history checks. That's assumed world knowledge, because the characters obviously have significantly more information about the world that they live in than the players do. And this is a really good way to replicate that kind of disconnect. And then the other way that I use it is within templates to visually break things up so I can see different ways to use the template. From this menu, you can also do things like add layouts, which breaks up the text box into columns. So you've got options for double columns, but you can also change it into triple columns or 2 columns where one of them has more weight than the other, kind of a Wikipedia style things, or with double sidebars. Really useful for making a block of text look a little bit prettier or organizing information. Then you've got dividers for just visually breaking up parts of the information on the page. You've also got the expand option, which will bring in the option for you to nest a lot of information. So you can add a ton of information and then just collapse it. So you can pack loads of information into really, really small amounts of real estate on the page. You can also add quotes, great for doing read aloud text if you're running pre-written adventures or you want to give yourself a little bit of help when you're running your adventures. Or you can add images straight into your page as well. A couple of helpful tips: if you hit the @ key, that is going to allow you to immediately link to any pre-written page. So you can see here in this particular example, we don't have a lot of pages, but we can link to our capital immediately just by hitting the @ and type in capital, or starting to type it. It'll narrow down our list. We can click it, hit capital. Another really useful option when you're in a flow state and you just want to work really quickly is you can create new pages by using double brackets. So let's say we're writing and we want to talk about a tower. If we hit double square brackets and type tower and close off those square brackets, it immediately creates a page called tower, creates a link to it. The only problem with this is it will always nest that page under the page that you're currently working on. Most of the time that's going to be fine, but depending on the way that you structure your world, sometimes that means you're going to need to move that page to somewhere else. When you combine all of that with the auto linker option, with the alias tool within Pages, you can get into a really nice quick write-in state where you can write a whole bunch of information, and then the system will kind of automate all of the connection points between it without you really having to do any worrying. Another cool feature in Legendkeeper is it actually has a dice roller built in. So if you write any dice expression, any DX expression, it can roll that dice. So let's say that we want to do a fireball. So let's do 66. Write it in, click on it, it'll roll a whole bunch of dice, give you the result. This isn't something that comes up super often for me, but it is really useful if you're building out tables. Let's say you've got a table of different options, you build it out, you put 1d4 in the top there, you can then roll that to get your result. Another thing that you can do, if you click the little context menu at the side of the table here, you can change what kind of table you've got to make it abandoned, make it easier to read, but you've also got this select random row option, which will go through the table and select the rows randomly, so you don't need to roll things. Great if you've got a massive table and you want to randomly generate some options. So I'm always on the lookout for new tools, new VTT options, and new games to try out, which is why I'm really pleased that today's video is sponsored by Fablecraft, because it's all of those things in one package. Fablecraft is a new TTRPG that's built specifically for virtual tabletop play. It's a simple, easy to learn D6 based fantasy system set in the world of Mithras. It's currently available to pick up for free on Steam. It's available on Windows and macOS, and it'll be coming to Android and iOS iOS tablets soon, with full mobile support planned for next year. The core system itself is really easy to pick up and learn, making it great for introducing to brand new folks to TTRPGs, especially if you're trying to convince some of your video game playing friends to try out TTRPGs with you, or if you want to introduce your kids to TTRPGs. The custom VTT engine that Fablecraft is built on is visually really impressive. It's not overloaded with features or options, but the UI is really intuitive, and if you've ever played a CRPG, you'll get to grips with how to navigate the interface almost immediately. Fablecraft comes with a bunch of pre-made adventures that are ready to go, and this is probably my favourite part about it. Not only are they laid out to be easily run with basically zero prep work by the GM, which is something that I love, they come with beautiful animated hand-drawn art backgrounds for setting the scene, beautiful battle maps for all your combats, custom soundtracks for each location, and some of them even include voiced NPC dialogue, so if you're a nervous first-time GM or you want to run through these adventures solo, they are perfect for that.
You see Dill standing next to a broken cairn at the roadside.
Must have been the storm that rolled through a few days back.
Dill says, shaking his head.
We'll likely be here a while.
If you're looking for a purpose-built VTT experience with gorgeous visuals and sound and want to lose yourself for a few hours in a bright, hopeful fantasy world, check out Fablecraft using the link below, and thanks again to Riftweaver for supporting the channel. So that's a brief overview of kind of the core of the system, but I know what you're here for. You want to see this in action. So let's dive over to my actual world and I'll show you how I use Legendkeeper in practice. So we're going to jump into my world of Ishtar, the homebrew world that I've been running now for getting on for a decade, and you will be presented with the jewel cities of Talavar. This is where my current homebrew campaign is going. We've been running for a little over a year now, 18 months, something like that. You can see that there is a lot going on this map. There are currently 600 exactly pins operating on this map. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is a bonkers amount of prep that is wildly unachievable for the average DM. I'm very fortunate in that this is my full-time job. I got to do a lot of this as content during streams. If I had to do this in addition to another full-time job, my map would not look like this. This is not how most people's stuff is going to look. I think it's important to mention that because a lot of people look at this map kind of aspirationally and then feel bad about themselves because they're like, well, my map isn't filled with like 600 points of interest and random things going on it. But it's because I do this as a job and I have the privilege of time to do it. So let me walk you through my Legendkeeper project and show you how I use the tool. So starting with the map, you can see there are, as I said, 600 pins on this map. So we need some way to tell them apart. And looking at this at first glance, you might be overwhelmed, especially as you zoom out and they kind of obscure the landmass and all you get is the pins. But when I look at this, I just see calm order because I have made the pins in such a way that I can glance at them and I broadly know what every one of them is because I've color coded them and given them specific icons to mean specific things. So we're going to choose an area. We'll go up to the Vale, which is an area my players have explored a lot of, and I'll go through just some of the options. Starting with the single black pin here that's shaped kind of like a hanging banner and has a globe on it. That is my icon for a region. So if I click on that, we get a page dedicated to the region of the Vale. And I have information from the setting guide. Like I said before, this is common knowledge. The players don't need to roll for it. This is everything they'd know. And then I have a bunch of secret information, plot hooks, things that I've worked out about the doppelganger system, which I'll mention up here, how dangerous the region is, whether there's magic item for sale, what the spellcasting levels are, things like that. Information about the monarchy, who rules this place, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what the black icons are. They're regions. They're different to the black flag icons. Those are larger world countries or broader regions. So there's one for the jewel cities here. That allows me to look at my main page for the jewel cities whilst also looking at the map. It's a little hack that I use to be able to look at two parts of the same page at the same time. But then we also have the wider world of Ishtar tagged down here so I can see the world map as well as get information on the entire world if I need to. Next we have these icons that have no pin. They are just the wavy lines for water. Those are water features. Anytime I have a water feature like the Lake of the Lady, the Bay of Tears, the Endless Ocean, all of those are denoted by that icon. Zooming in a little further, you can see that there are some hidden icons that don't have pin icons. They're round colored icons. Those are all natural resources. So black is coal or oil. We've got sort of orangey colors for coppers. We've got yellows for gold, whites for silver. I placed these in right at the start of the process, and that helped me in the world building process to start placing other things. So if we go over here, near the Lady of the Lake, there is a mithril marker, which told me, cool, there is a mithril mine here, which ultimately led to the development of the town of Shimmer, denoted by this rounded signpost. That's my sign for towns and villages. Shimmer is a mining town that mines the mithril that are up in them there hills. Speaking of hills and forests and the like, anytime that I have a natural terrain feature that isn't water, it's denoted by one of these diamond-shaped brown icons that has the logo for whatever it is. So in this case, the Silverleaf Forest has got trees in it, Dragonswood has got trees in it, but if it was a mountain, it'd have the shape of a mountain in, and they're brown diamond-shaped icons. Then we have these red shields with a skull in. Those are monsters. So across the whole world, there are probably 100 plus monster lairs and monster locations scattered throughout that the players might wander into when they're traveling. So this is a very hex crawly style open world sandbox campaign that we're running. A lot of exploration, a lot of going from place to place. So all of these icons are monsters, and I denote them usually with a level. So there's some goblins suitable for level 1 on this trail here, but there is no information kept in that pin, and a lot of these pins have no or little information in them beyond the fact that something exists, and here is the broad concept of what it is, and a level attachment if it's a monster or a magic item. But that is enough, given the context of what I know about the players and what they're currently doing, as well as where they're going and where they've been, and the context of the wider world, that just getting that information is enough for me to build out really robust encounters really quickly, because I've got so much other contextual information. And that is the way that I use these vast array of pins, is jumping off points each week. So I did a lot of base work prep right at the start, and now each week, let's say they go through the Weld of Masks, and there's a note there for the Faceless Butcher. Cool. The Faceless Butcher is an 11th level threat in the Weld of Masks, where everyone wears a mask and they carve faces into the trees, and I've got some information on the Weld of Masks there. I could use that to build out a really fun and interesting adventure for the party really, really quickly. Next up, we have the pink icons. Those are specific locations that aren't cities or settlements. So if it is a wizard's tower or the Cloaked Ruins, a former Timestone research station that has become a monastic kind of monastery, a monk's monastery, that might be a pink location. Or the ruins of Silverforge, an old kind of fortress that's fallen into ruins. It's not a settlement, it's not a city, but it is in a fixed location, which means it is pink. That's in contrast to the monsters, which can move. It's very rare that the monsters need to be in a fixed location. If the monster needs to be in a fixed location, I will usually double pin it. So I'll put a monster pin, and I'll also put a pink fixed location pin, usually for a dungeon or something, tie the two of them together. Or in the case of the Weld of Masks, we've got the icon for the Weld of Masks and the Faceless Butcher. And then we have our green icons. Those are magical items that are out in the world. For example, we've got here in Dream some glamoured studded leather, because I know that there is a set of glamoured studded leather there. A lot of this was randomly generated using tables. I have a big Excel spreadsheet which I use to randomly generate monsters, which will give me a CR range, a size, and a creature type to put in a hex. So it might say an undead, a large undead between CR 7 and 11, and I'll load up D&D Beyond, I'll put those parameters in, and then I'll either roll for the options that are there, or I'll choose one of them to place into the world. Same with magic items. The Glamoured Studded Leather will have been a rare set of armor, rolled up randomly on the table, and then rolled from the results. Glamoured Studded Leather. And then we come to these white question mark icons. These are random encounters. So some of these are potentially tied to locations. So Lightning Beach, for example. So a powerful lightning spell was cast here, and where it struck the sound, it crystallized into exploding pillars of glass. I've put that here. That is kind of tied to a location in as much as it needs to be somewhere where there is sand, so a beach or the desert, but it doesn't necessarily need to be this specific hex. It could move if needed. Or an adventurer's camp. A group of adventurers are camped here harvesting the body of a great sea beast. There is a couple of locations where that pin exists. And this is something that I do as well, is I will put the same generic pin in a couple of places around the world. So the world being this specific map. So that adventurer's camp where they're harvesting a sea beast appears on the coastline across a couple different places around this map, so that I know that the players are unlikely to run into all of them. The first time they run into it, I will change that pin to reflect that, so it will get deleted or renamed or become something more specific. But as we zoom out here, you can see that there are just tons, like I said, 600 in total of these pins between settlements and specific locations, monsters, dungeons, random encounters, points of interest, magic items distributed through the world. And what this means is my players can literally go anywhere. They can point to anywhere on the map and they can go there, and along the way they will go through a whole bunch of pins and will have adventures broadly shaped by what is in the world. It makes the world feel very, very real. As an example, my players were recently in the Unclaimed Lands, a jungle in the southwest of the region, and they made landfall in the city of Eastsong, and they were bound for the Labyrinth of the Nameless Fiend. And along the way, they passed through the village of Graxbranch, and after they'd been to the Labyrinth of the Nameless Fiend, they decided to go to Chorus. So as they were making their way through there, they passed and they had several options to encounter different monsters, ended up in the city of Chorus. From there, they decided that they wanted to go and see the grandfather tree, because they asked people in Chorus, oh, what are some rumors that are going on around here? And they heard about the grandfather tree. They also did some good rolling and got told about a particular village to the northeast that is incredibly dangerous and kind of wipes your memory and has weird memory affecting properties to it. So they decided, oh, we won't kind of go in a straight line to the grandfather tree, we'll go straight east for a little bit, which meant that they ended up in the town of Gemetray, which is a Furbolg village which pays homage to wood giants. And they had a night there, met some Furbolgs, saw them interact with some wood giants. Those people in that village warned them about a green dragon that was up in the north. They decided they didn't want to mess with that, so that allowed them to circumvent that, end up at the grandfather tree. The grandfather tree has told them about a nearby dangerous bird, the lightning bird. That is where they're going next, and then they'll probably go to the city of Cord to leave. On the way through, they're going to have to be careful to avoid that Apequay, which is this mind-altering village. So after they've defeated the lightning bird, if they fail their survival checks, they're going to wander straight into that village. And that whole arc of adventures required very little from me in terms of prep. It was just kind of charting their path through all of these pins that I've already made. In terms of how I build these out, I've got a whole bunch of different templates that I use for all of these points of interest. Let's go ahead and click on a settlement template for an example. So this has got a nice piece of splash art. This is one of the backgrounds from the new PHB. I loaded all them in because they're about the right aspect ratio for this. And I've got kind of my from the setting guide, so the core information, high level information about this settlement, information kind of wiki style. What's the alignment of the settlement? Who's the ruler? What system of government is it? What languages do they speak? What are their dominant populations, their minority populations, their religions, etc., etc.? What's the danger level? That's a way for me to get a gut check of how likely are the players to encounter a combat in this place. Are there magic items for sale? What's the max item level? So what rarity and what spellcasting level is available? Mainly used for things like teleportation circles, resurrections, that kind of thing. Then I've got this locations in a settlement. I use this for once I've built out the settlement, I can look at this list and go, right, okay, does the settlement have a tavern? Yes. Does it have a jail? Yes or no? Does it have a courthouse? Probably not. Does it have a town hall? Maybe. Does it have an alchemist? Maybe. Does it have a theatre? This is a small settlement, so probably not. Really quick way to build out settlement. Then the final thing that I want to show off really quickly is my GM screen. I do have a video talking all about this, which I will link as well, but I thought it worthwhile talking about here just quickly. This is using the boards feature in Legendkeeper. This is a specific type of page which allows you to put in wiki pages as clickable buttons. And this is how I run my GM screen. So this is my current one, which is I've started adapting for the 2024 revision of the rules. And you can see I've got it broken down into 3 sections: combat, downtime, and then GM focused stuff. So let's click something here, object hardness. I click that and it will show me the ACs of different objects, how much hit points they have, what the damage thresholds are. I've got a page for healing, it's got all the standard healing numbers. I've got pages for the items that the party currently want, or a quick monster builder, which gives me AC and HP and attack and defensive characteristics for a monster, kind of a generic monster at a particular CR level. And all of this is really useful for running the game and using it as a digital DM screen. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of Legendkeeper down in the comments below. If you want to keep watching, check out this video where I go over my Legendkeeper DM screen. But until next time, happy gaming.